Hi, and welcome to the live video. Today, we're going to be talking about the benefits of consolidating debts using a mortgage. So, if you feel like you're constantly having to shell out cash for different credit card bills, different loan payments, or anything else, you may even be considering doing some home improvements to sort your house out or perhaps add an extension on, and you think that it might be better to get them onto one rate or to get it into one single monthly payment, then hopefully this video will give you all of the benefits of about why it is that you should be considering doing that. So let's get into the video and let's get to understand what the benefits could be. So, looking at the benefits of consolidating debts. So, just to be clear, there's quite a number of benefits which I want to run through on this video, but there will be another video which will be available on the social media channels, including YouTube, about the disadvantages, because I'm going to do that video separately. So, go and have a look at that, because there are obviously some disadvantages, and we'll touch on some of them as we go through. So, just quickly, what is debt consolidation? Importantly, let's get this out of the way. I'm sure that most people know what it is, but debt consolidation is effectively where you take a loan to pay off a number of other debts. So you take sort of loans and credit cards, whether it be unsecured loans or whatever, and you put them into one place. So they're all on one interest rate and one monthly payment. Now, that could be useful for a number of different things, but it can help you to pay them off quicker if it lowers the rate, for example. But we'll go through those in a second. Now, what we're going to talk about today is specifically to do with borrowing money to using your mortgage. So whether it be on on your existing mortgage, or whether it be a second charge or a secured loan, we're effectively using a secured method. So in other words, what I mean by secured is if you decide, or not decide, if you ever get to the point where you can't make a payment, then you could eventually get that property repossessed. And obviously that's what we are trying to avoid. So using any sort of secured lending, you should obviously make sure that you can afford the monthly payments. But there are other options you should consider. So for things like personal loans, credit cards, and obviously borrowing from family. If any of those are options, you should go and consider them. The main difference between a secured and an unsecured loan will be really the amount you can borrow and how long you can borrow it for. So if you're going to be taking a secured loan, you can borrow it's effectively a mortgage. So you can take it for however long that you could take a mortgage for. With an unsecured loan, that's slightly different, because an unsecured loan you can only take generally a maximum of 7 years. Because you have to pay that off during that 7-year period, that tends to be that little bit more expensive in terms of, or not so much expensive, but you get a higher monthly payment for it, because you have to pay it off over a shorter term. So they are the sort of main differences between the two. So let's just double check. I've got nothing else I need to talk about. So what we need to cover now is how you can use a mortgage to consolidate your debts. So effectively, when you remortgage, it's a bit like taking out a new loan in order to repay the loan you already have. So you take out, let's say your mortgage is £50,000. You take out a mortgage of £50,000, and then you give that to your old lender. That's your old mortgage paid off, and then your mortgage is with the new one. What you do with to use your mortgage to consolidate debts, or if you're looking to raise for any other purpose, including sort of home improvements or anything like that, is you effectively borrow more than what your current balance is. So you borrow let's say £60,000, pay the £50,000 off to your old lender, and that £10,000 then you then get to use for whatever it is that you want to use it for, including consolidating debts. Now, every single lender has a slightly different way of looking at or understanding or allowing what you can do with that money. So some do allow you to consolidate debts. Some have got more restrictive criteria on what you can use. Some lenders will only allow you to consolidate a certain number of debts. Other lenders will only allow you to consolidate a certain value. So let's say £50,000, for example, before they'd actually start then saying no. Some lenders have got both those bits of criteria sort of mixed in. So it's always good to get some advice and to understand what lender does what. Or if you are doing this on your own, make sure you do double check with your lender to make sure that they are happy for the number of debts that are being consolidated to be consolidated. Because what you don't want to do is you get to the point of completion, and maybe you try and tack on one or two more debts to be consolidated, or you move them around slightly and you go over that threshold and suddenly the whole thing gets declined. Make sure you understand that from the beginning. And we'll come on to that towards the end of this to see what documents, things you should get together before you even attempt this. But yeah, that's the sort of main, that's really effectively what you're doing. So let's cover the benefits then. So as I said at the beginning, there will be a separate video on the disadvantages of consolidating debt. Check out the YouTube channel. It will be on various other social media that we've got, so Facebook and whatever. But it will be there on YouTube, which will probably be slightly easier to find. So if you're looking for the disadvantages, go and have a look at that. But in the meantime, let's check out the disadvantage or the benefits of it. So the benefits, as I touched on earlier, is the 1 monthly payment. So if you've got credit cards and loans or whatever, you're going to have sort of different payments and probably at different points of the month. So you might have some that will go out on the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd. And you might have a day off, and then the 5th and the 6th, you'll have something else go out. And it may not be for a huge amount of money. You might have 500 quid on one, £1,000 on another. But all of that adds up. And really where the impact comes in is when it comes to the monthly payments. Essentially the monthly payments and your credit score. Because if you miss one of those, if you, for whatever reason, let's say something happens, there's a bill that goes out that you forget about, or things happen, right? So let's say that it's a £10 direct debit, right? Something ridiculous, and it bounces for some silly reason. That has a huge impact on your credit file and your credit score. So it can start then to have an impact in what options you will have sort of later on. So, for example, you may not have an option to get a new car, or if you do come to remortgage or get a new car, actually you're going to start qualifying for far higher rates than what you've got now. So making sure that you get these payments and you make the payments on time is absolutely key, absolutely critical to maintaining your credit file. So 1 monthly payment allows you to do that a lot easier because you'll have the 1 monthly payment. You know exactly when it comes out. So it's far easier to manage. As well as that, sometimes it can improve your credit score. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've got some credit cards and they're very close to their limits. And when I say very close, are you using more than 60, 70% of whatever your credit limit is on your credit card? If the answer to that is yes, then different lenders work slightly differently, but they're going to start impacting the score, your credit score. So that if you're, say, using 80, 90% of whatever your credit limit is, you will start to find that the loans and things that you're getting approved for either become more expensive or start to get declined. Because although you're within your rights to use that entire credit limit, that is what your agreement with the lender is. There's nothing, you're not going to get charged extra for it, apart from the interest that you'd get charged anyway. You're using it as they've allowed you to use it. But other new lenders view this in a way that, well, hang on, why is that credit card, or why is that credit being utilized so much? So they look at a credit utilization score. So if you're using too much of your credit, they start to get a little bit concerned, and then your credit score will start to drop. So by consolidating it all into one loan, essentially those credit cards will remain unless you decide to close them. And essentially what will happen is you've then got all of that balance, which is then not spent. Now, the one thing to sort of point out, and we will do a disadvantages separately, but just one thing to really be clear on. If you think you are the type of person that will consolidate your debts, keep the credit cards, and then go and spend on the credit cards again and get into the same position that you may find yourself in now, then if you're sitting with an application form on your desk, or you're about to fill in an inquiry form to do a debt consolidation, mortgage, or whatever it is, best thing I can say to you is go and put it in the bin. Because although it will help you now, it will reduce your monthly payments. If you can't control that and you continue to run up credit cards, you're going to end up in a far worse position than where you are right now. Because you may be getting to the point that you either can't afford the monthly payments, or your credit limits are getting to the point that you feel like you need more money in order to live on a monthly basis. I promise you that's the worst place you can be, because what's going to happen is it'll be fine for a couple of months because you'll be using the credit, everything's fine. But what happens when your credit limit, or when you get to your credit limit again? Well, you may be able to do a debt consolidation loan again, but why would you want to? Or you may use all of your equity, or all of your options, or your affordability may have gone, and actually you can't do that. Then what happens? You've then got a far higher loan that you've got to pay, as whether it be on your loan, on your mortgage, or whether it be a secured loan, and you've got all the credit card bills that you had before that you've still got to pay. You will be in a far worse position. So if you think that you're going to consolidate a load of debt, especially credit card debt, and then you think there's a possibility that you may go and do that again, this is not for you. And when you get to speak to an advisor, that is something an advisor will have a chat to you about. And you've got to be fairly confident. I mean, we can't govern that. We can't stop you using it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But it's probably not a good idea. So just have a little, have that sort of conversation with yourself, really, and see kind of where the land lies. Overall, or lower overall interest rates. Now, we all know that credit cards are obscenely expensive. The interest rates on them are absolutely ridiculous, and it would be very difficult to take a loan out, especially a secured loan or a mortgage, that is going to be at a higher rate than a credit card. I mean, I can't tell you that will never happen, but I've never seen it so far, and I've been doing this for sort of 15, 16 years. So it hasn't happened yet. Let's hope it never does, because we'll all be in trouble. But the point of it is, you should get a lower interest rate if you decide to consolidate your debts. Now, the important part of this is that doesn't mean you will overall pay less interest. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've currently got a personal loan, and that personal loan, let's just go obscene and say that you're paying 30% per annum on it, but that'll be paid off in 5 years' time. But you then go and put it on a mortgage, and let's just, for argument's sake, as an example, that mortgage is 5%, but that mortgage is over, say, 30, 35, or 40 years. There's a very good chance that because you're taking it over a longer term, in the long run, you're actually going to pay more interest, even though the monthly payment initially will be lower. So yes, you'll get a lower overall credit rate, or you should get a lower overall credit rate, otherwise the entire thing is completely pointless. But that doesn't mean you will pay less interest. Again, we'll cover that in a bit more detail when we go into the disadvantages, but the important part is that you will get a lower overall interest rate. The good thing about that, of course, is if you do get a lower overall interest rate, but affordability isn't your issue, so you don't really want to lower your monthly payments, you just want to get rid of the debt, then having a lower overall interest rate and then reducing that loan over a shorter term, so 5 years or whatever, actually you will have a lower overall interest rate, if I can say that, but you'll also pay lower interest overall, because it's then paid off. So it does depend on your circumstances. But again, have a chat with the broker, because ultimately they'll be able to do that calculation for you. So tips then. What can you do to put yourself in the best position to get a debt consolidation mortgage, or just a mortgage in general, whether that be a mortgage, remortgage, secured loan, or whatever? Really, today I'm probably going to talk about documents and making sure you've got the right documents in place. We do sometimes get clients who get bit frustrated with the amount of paperwork that's involved. Now, bear in mind, a broker will do most of the paperwork for you, but we don't have things like your passport and your driving license and your bank statements. We don't have access to your employer to get your pay slips. We do need you to do these things. And when it comes to debt consolidation, we're going to ask you for things like a settlement statement on your personal loan accounts, like your credit card statements, like your PayPal statements, or whatever statements that you're going to consolidate, because we need to make sure that we've got enough money in order to pay them off. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. So depending on how many sort of different lines of credit that you've got, that can seem like a lot of work. So the best thing I can say for you to do is, if you are considering this, you need to be prepared to do that work, because otherwise this just won't work for you. We can't do these things on your behalf. It just doesn't happen. So you may want to start off, before you even get in touch with anybody, have a little look around, get all your documents together. And if you have a check on the YouTube channel, there's another video there to tell you what sort of documents as standard we'd ask you for. But on top of that, you can also say, we need all of your settlement statements for your personal loans and all of your credit card statements. So you want to get those together, because that will help massively. To touch very quickly on fees, you kind of get what you pay for, really. So these are the three things that we always say that you can get when it comes to fees. So you can get something good, you can get something cheap, or you can get something fast. Now, the problem is you can only have two out of those three options. So if you want something good and you want something fast, it's generally not very cheap. If you want something cheap and you want something good, it's generally not very fast. You get the idea. You can only pick two of those options. So some brokers do charge fees, some don't. You kind of need to pick from there if you are going to choose to use a broker, of what type of service really that you're looking for. And if you do decide to go directly to a bank, yes, you will get to see a mortgage broker, but bear in mind, because they work for the bank, they can only talk about the bank's products. So you don't know whether that is the right deal for you. And that's it. That's it for today. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments. And I will do my very best to get back and answer them. And if some comments are brilliant, some comments give me great ideas for future videos. So if do pop them in there. Yeah, I'll see you next time.